You are on a stone quay at the edge of a small Greek island harbor, and you are walking slowly, letting your sandals find the smooth places in the worn rock. The water below makes one steady sound, soft lapping against stone, and above it, one steady light answers, the warm glow of an oil lamp hanging near a doorway, trembling on the dark surface like a small, patient star. The first steps feel easy, almost automatic, as if the quay remembers the pace of a quiet walker. The stone gives back a faint chill where the night has settled into it, but it is softened by places where the rock still holds the day. Even the air carries two temperatures at once, a coolness that comes from the sea, and a gentler warmth that clings close to walls and doorways. A few boats rock where they're tied, their hulls shifting by a finger's width, then settling again. Ropes creak in a slow rhythm, as if the harbor is breathing through hemp and wood. You keep to the center of the quay, close enough to the lamplit buildings to feel the warmth of human life, and close enough to the edge to watch the reflections break and reform. There are little sounds layered inside the larger ones. A faint drip from an oar blade left to dry. A soft knock where a wooden fender meets stone, then pulls away. The ropes don't groan loudly, they complain the way old timber complains, without urgency, and then they rest again. The lamp's light does not chase away the night. It only makes a circle within it, and you step in and out of that circle as you go, watching your shadow stretch long, then soften, then disappear. In that circle, everything looks warmer than it truly is. The stone takes on the color of baked clay. The edges of the quay soften. You can see the faint sheen on wet rock close to the waterline, and the small grains of sand that have settled in cracks. Then you step beyond the circle and the night becomes bluer, quieter, and the harbor looks deeper, like a bowl made of darkness. After a while, you pause beside a mooring ring set into the stone. Your hand finds it by touch first, cool metal, salted by air, then by sight, when the lamp's glow catches the curve. A thick rope passes through it, rubbed pale where it has been pulled tight and loosened 1,000 times. The ring is worn smooth in places where countless hands have steadied themselves. Your fingers feel the slight ridge where the metal meets stone, and the faint roughness where salt has crusted and been scraped away again and again. The rope has its own texture, fibers raised like tiny hairs, stiff in some places, softer in others where oils from hands and sea have soaked in. You listen more closely. There is the water, always. There is the rope, answering it. There is the quieter sound of wood speaking to water, a low groan that changes when the boat leans and rights itself. Farther up the quay, a door closes gently, not with force, but with the careful finality of someone ending the day. The door sound arrives like a small punctuation, then dissolves. It leaves behind a heavier stillness, the kind that comes when tasks are finished and the night is allowed to be what it is. Even the air feels steadier after it, less stirred by movement, more settled into its slow drift. The stone beneath your feet still holds a little warmth from the sun that set hours ago. You can feel it through the soles, fading slowly, as the night takes what it wants. That fading warmth feels patient. Not a sudden loss, but a gradual surrender. The stone gives up its heat the way a lamp gives up its oil, bit by bit, without complaint. You continue along the curve of the harbor, where the quay widens for a short stretch. Here, the stone blocks are larger, fitted tight, their edges softened by salt and time. A low wall rises on the inland side, and behind it are shuttered stalls and small storerooms, wooden doors, iron pins, simple latches. In the wider stretch, your steps sound different. The space opens, and the harbor breath is more noticeable, the breeze moving across the water and then across your face. The larger stones beneath you feel more level, and your sandals find long, smooth runs where countless loads have been dragged and rolled. A fishing net hangs in a loose curtain over a frame, its knots catching the lamplight like dew. The net smells of brine and old seawater, and of the day's work that has already ended. A float made of cork or carved wood rests against the frame, and a small weight of stone lies on the ground nearby, dark as the water. The knots are tiny repetitions, almost soothing to look at, each loop a small decision made by a patient hand. The net is not perfectly clean, it carries the faint darker stains of seaweed and fish scales, reminders that the harbor is fed by work. The float has a softened surface where it has rubbed against rope, and the stone weight is smooth in the way shore stones become smooth, rounded by water and time. You don't touch the net. You only look, letting your eyes follow the pattern until it becomes a kind of calm, repeating thought. The longer you look, the less the net feels like an object and the more it feels like rhythm. Not space, not space. The same kind of rhythm the harbor keeps, wave, pause, wave, pause. Your breathing finds it without effort. Later, you find a place where a lamp has been set on a low ledge near the water, terracotta, shallow-bellied, with a small spout where the wick rests. The flame leans slightly when the breeze comes, then straightens again, and the reflection below does the same, a golden thread unraveling and reweaving on the surface. The lamp is simple, made for use, not display. Its clay body is darkened near the spout where the flame has lived for hours, and the wick is blackened at the tip. A small pool of oil glints inside like a dark mirror, and when the flame moves, the oil catches the light for an instant. You watch the smallest ripples break the light into pieces. A boat shifts, and the pieces drift apart. Then the water stills, and the pieces gather again into one trembling shape. The surface of the harbor is never fully still, not even here in the protected curve. It is always making tiny decisions, choosing which direction to lean, which reflection to keep whole and which to scatter. The light seems to float on it and inside it at the same time, as if the water is willing to hold it. The smell of oil is faint but present, warm, slightly sharp, familiar in the way daily things are familiar. It mixes with salt air, and with something else, baked bread from somewhere deeper in the lanes, or smoke from a brazier cooling. That mixed scent feels like the town itself, sea and hearth together. You can taste a little salt when you breathe in. You can also taste a hint of smoke that clings to your cloak, the last trace of an evening fire. It is the scent of endings, but not an abrupt ending, an ending that unfolds slowly into night. As the night deepens, the harbor shows its layers of light. Near the lamps, stone looks warm, almost honey-colored. Away from them, moonlight takes over, turning the quay pale and quiet, and making every edge sharper. In lamplight, the cracks in the stone seem gentler, their shadows softer. In moonlight, every line is clearer, as if the night has drawn the quarry marks back out. Your own hands look different too, warm and alive near a flame, cool and silvered when you step out into the moon. You walk into a stretch where the lamps are fewer. Here, the main light is the moon, cool and steady, and the main sound is still the water, now louder because there is less human noise to soften it. You can see the outline of a small island or a darker shoulder of land across the water, and above it, stars that seem close enough to count. The stars don't glitter loudly. They are simply there, fixed points that make the sky feel deeper. The darker shoulder across the water sits like a quiet presence, unmoving, and the space between you and it feels like a long, slow breath. The harbor feels larger in moonlight, as if the darkness has made room for distance. Even the boats feel farther away from one another, their shadows more independent. The water between them becomes a broader field of blackness, and the harbor's curve becomes a gentler arc instead of a tight enclosure. It is the same place, but the moon has widened it. You turn away from the water and follow a narrow lane that rises slightly. Just enough to change the air on your face. The walls are close on either side, stone and plaster, worn smooth where hands have brushed them, rougher where weather has eaten at the surface. The lane makes the breeze behave differently. It comes in small streams, guided by corners and doorways, sometimes touching your cheek, sometimes passing above your head. The smell changes too, less open sea, more plaster, more old wood, a faint trace of oil smoke that has settled into the walls over years. A lamp hangs from a bracket at a corner, its glow pressed into the tight space. It paints the wall in amber, and the plaster looks like skin, thin in places, cracked in others, patched and whitewashed again. You hear your own steps more clearly here. The lane holds sound and returns it to you. Each step makes a soft scrape, then a softer tap. The sound is not loud, but it is close, and the walls give it back as if they are keeping you company. Your shadow moves ahead of you on the plaster, stretching into a long shape and then breaking when it crosses a crack. Somewhere behind a shutter, a quiet voice speaks a few words, then stops. The sound is not for you. It belongs to the house, to the night inside. The words are indistinct, more like breath shaped into sound than a message. You don't try to understand. You only notice the way life continues behind wood and plaster, gentle and private. Then the lane quiets again, and your steps return to being the clearest thing. After a while, the lane opens into a small paved area that serves as a market by day. In daylight it would be crowded with baskets and clay jars and voices bargaining softly, but now it is empty. The stone is clean in the center where many feet have passed, and darker at the edges where dust gathers. The open space feels like a pause. The air above the paving stones is cooler, freer. You can see more of the sky here, a slice of it framed by rooftops and the edge of a colonnade. The market stones hold the day's memory in their smoothness, tiny rounded places where loads have scraped, where sandals have worn down the surface. A stoa borders one side, columns supporting a roof that makes a long shadow. In the darkness, the columns look thinner than they do in day, and their shadows stretch like narrow pools. The roofline makes the stoa feel like a sheltered corridor even from a distance. The columns stand in a slow row, each one a quiet marker of space. Their bases are darker where dust and damp have gathered. Between them, the darkness looks layered, like cloth folded many times. At the far end, a single lamp burns near a post where someone has left a low stool. Perhaps a guard sits there sometimes. Tonight it is only the lamp, keeping its small circle of light without asking anyone to notice. The stool looks small in the open market, almost fragile. The lamp makes a shallow pool of warmth on the stones, and you can see a faint halo of smoke drifting upward, then disappearing into night. There is no movement near it now, no shift of weight, no cough, only the lamp doing its one task. The night continues on its own, even when no one is watching. In that thought, there is a kind of quiet relief. The stones will remain. The market will return to life when day returns. For now, everything can simply be still. You cross the market slowly and take another lane, this one quieter, lined with small doorways. The doors are plain wood, reinforced with a strip of metal, and each has its own way of closing, some with a soft click, some with a deeper thud. Here, the town feels more intimate. The lane is narrow enough that you could touch both walls if you reached out. Doorways sit close together, each one a threshold to a different pocket of warmth. Some doors have a small step worn down in the middle. Some have an iron ring for knocking. Most are closed, the wood dark, absorbing the moon. You pass a doorway where a thin line of lamplight shows beneath the threshold, and you imagine the room inside, a low table, a clay cup, a lamp set carefully so it won't tip. A family's day folded up like cloth and put away. In your mind, you see the way the lamp would make the table's edge glow, and the way shadows would gather under the bench. You imagine sandals set aside near the wall, a cloak hung from a peg, a jug of water placed where it can be reached without searching. The light under the door is only a thin blade, but it carries all of that quiet order. Above, a small window opening is covered with a shutter, and through the cracks you see nothing but darkness. The house is not empty. It is simply turned inward. The shuttered darkness is not cold. It feels protected. The house has pulled its attention in, like a person pulling a blanket closer. The lane becomes a place for passing through, not for lingering, and your steps remain careful, respectful, slow. Later, you reach a modest sanctuary set a little above the harbor, nothing grand, just a sacred precinct marked by low walls and a change in paving. The entrance is open, and the space beyond feels different, as if the air itself has been brushed clean. The stone underfoot changes texture, slightly rougher, as if to remind you that this is not the same path as the lane. The low walls guide your eyes inward, toward a small altar, toward the shapes of columns or posts that hold up a simple roof. Even in dimness, the place feels arranged with intention. A lamp burns near an altar, and the stone around it carries faint stains, old wine, old oil, old smoke. The flame here seems steadier, protected by the walls and by habit. Shadows from the columns fall long and thin, and the carved edges of stone catch light and let it go. The flame's steadiness makes the lamp seem older than it is, as if it has been burning for generations. The stains on the stone are not dramatic, they are quiet traces, like fingerprints of countless offerings. The altar itself is plain, but the way the light touches its corners gives it a soft dignity. You stand at the edge of the precinct and do not step fully in. You let your eyes rest on the lamp, on the stillness, on the way the sacred space is quiet without being empty. The quiet is different from the harbor's quiet. The harbor quiet is full of movement, full of water and rope and shifting hulls. Here, the quiet is held more tightly, gathered into the space and kept there. Your breath sounds louder for a moment, and then it softens. After a moment, you hear a sound that is not water, the soft scrape of a sandal on stone inside the sanctuary. A figure moves, slowly, deliberately, tending the lamp, checking the oil, adjusting the wick with practiced care. The motion is careful enough that the flame barely trembles. You see the hand come close to the lamp, not hurried, not uncertain. The figure's cloak makes a faint whisper against stone, and the sound feels like part of the sanctuary, not an interruption of it. You do not see the face clearly. The lamp keeps the person half in shadow, half in warmth. A simple task, repeated night after night, becomes a kind of calm ritual. The figure's silhouette is ordinary, not made larger by the light. It is a person doing what must be done, and the steadiness of the action is its own form of reverence. For a moment, you can almost smell the oil more clearly, warmed by attention, and the faint smoke that rises when the wick is lifted and set again. The figure sets a small bowl down near the altar, perhaps a little wine, perhaps a piece of bread, and then steps back. No announcement, no spectacle. Only the quiet act, and the lamp's light holding it. The bowl lands with a soft, muted sound, clay against stone. It feels like placing a thought down and letting it stay there. The figure pauses, as if listening, and then the movement ends. The sanctuary returns to stillness without effort. You breathe in and smell incense faintly, mixed with sea air drifting up from below. The incense is not thick. It is only a trace, caught in the stone and released slowly when the air moves. It blends with salt in a way that feels ancient and familiar, like two kinds of offering made without words. You leave the sanctuary the way you came, without hurry, and return toward the harbor. Going downhill, the air feels cooler again, and you hear the water before you see it, the steady lapping that never seems to tire. The descent is gentle, and your body follows it naturally. The town's stone steps and sloping paths guide you back toward the shoreline as if the whole place is tilted slightly toward the sea. The first glimpse of the harbor returns between walls, a patch of darkness, a hint of reflected light, a pale line where the quay meets water. At the edge of the quay, the boats are still there, rocking gently, as if they have not moved at all. The ropes keep their low creak, and somewhere a chain makes a soft clink, then falls silent. The chain sound is brief, like a small bell, and then it disappears into the larger rhythm. The boat's movement is so slow it almost seems imagined, until you watch long enough to see the slight shift, the gradual return, the way each hull finds its place again. You find a spot where the stone meets the water and crouch, letting your fingers touch the surface of the quay close to the edge. The stone is damp here, chilled by spray, and it smells strongly of salt. The dampness is a thin film, cooler than the stone farther up. Your fingertips feel the slickness where algae has tried to take hold, and the faint grit of sand pressed into the pores of rock. The smell is sharp and clean, like the sea has etched itself into the stone. You straighten again, slowly, as if the movement itself can be quiet. As you rise, the world seems to rise with you, the boats, the lamps, the line of the quay. Your knees unbend without haste, and your balance feels steady, anchored by the familiar, even surface beneath your feet. A little later, you walk past a small workshop near the harbor, its door closed, but the scent of tar and wood still clinging to the air around it. You imagine a boat pulled up in daylight, a seam being packed, a hand smoothing pitch into a crack. Now, the work is done, and only the smell remains, sharp and clean. The scent feels almost dark in itself, heavier than salt air. It carries the memory of heat, of hands warmed by labor, of tools tapping wood. The workshop door is plain, its grain visible where moonlight touches it. A narrow gap at the threshold shows only darkness inside. In front of the door, a coil of rope rests like a sleeping animal, and beside it a few wooden pegs and a small mallet lie where they were set down. The rope coil has a gentle roundness, each loop resting on the next. The pegs look smooth from use, their ends slightly bruised. The mallet's handle is polished where fingers have gripped it day after day, and its head bears small scars. Everything is placed with the tired accuracy of someone who knows they will return. Above the workshop door, a lamp bracket is empty. Not every place keeps a flame through the night. Some places let moonlight do the watching. The emptiness of the bracket makes the darkness near the workshop feel deeper. Moonlight doesn't warm the wood, it only outlines it. In that outline, the workshop looks like a quiet mouth closed for the night, holding its tools and smells inside. The moon's light turns the harbor water into dark glass, broken only by ripples. From here, the water reflects less lamp and more sky. It becomes a surface that holds darkness as easily as it holds light. Every ripple is a small fracture, then a healing. You come to a stretch of quay where the stone is lower, closer to the water. Here, the sound of small splashes is clearer, water tapping the rock, pulling back, tapping again. The pattern is steady but never exactly the same, like breathing. At this lower edge, the sea feels closer to your body. The air is damp enough to cool your skin. You can see tiny beads of water clinging to the stone where waves have reached up, then retreated. The sound is gentle but constant, like a hand tapping softly to keep time. You lean on the stone wall and look down at the boats nearest you. Their sides are marked with scratches, repairs, patches of darker wood. The boats are not beautiful in a polished way. They are beautiful in a used way, shaped by hands and salt and necessity. The repair patches look like careful answers to past storms and sharp rocks. Some seams are darker where pitch has been applied. The wood has been rubbed smooth by ropes and by water. The boats carry the faint smell of wet timber, and a quieter smell, fish and seawater and the oils that keep wood from drying out too quickly. A lantern on a boat's stern glows faintly, shielded from wind. The reflection beneath it sways, a slow pendulum of light. The lantern's glow is small, but it changes the water's character beneath it. It makes a narrow path where the darkness is less absolute, where the water seems softer. The reflection stretches when a wave passes, then tightens again, and you feel your attention stretching and tightening with it. You watch it long enough that time stops feeling like a line and starts feeling like a gentle loop. In that loop, the harbor becomes simpler. Light, water, stone. A slow shift. A slow return. It is enough. After a while, you turn inland again, drawn by a smell that grows stronger, bread cooling somewhere, and olive oil warming in lamps. You follow the scent through narrow lanes until you find a courtyard door left slightly open for air. The scent pulls you the way warmth pulls a hand. It is not hunger exactly, but recognition. Bread has a way of making the night feel more human. Olive oil has a way of making light feel more intimate. Together, they form a quiet invitation without words. You do not enter. You simply pause near the doorway and listen. Inside, you hear the quiet scrape of a basin being set down, water poured carefully, the soft shake of cloth. Someone washing hands and feet at the end of the day, methodical and unhurried. The sounds are close and ordinary, and that makes them soothing. Water poured from a jug into a basin has a soft, rounded note. Cloth shaken out makes a dry whisper. The basin's edge meets stone with a dull, gentle contact. No one rushes, and nothing spills. A lamp inside casts light onto the courtyard floor, and you glimpse pale stone and the edge of a low stool. Shadows shift as someone moves, then settle again. The courtyard stone looks lighter than the Quay stone, as if it has been washed more often. The lamp makes a warm patch that trembles slightly, and in that patch you can see dust motes drifting, slow as tiny insects. When the person moves, the shadows glide rather than jump. The scent of warm oil and clean water drifts out, and then, as the door eases closer to shut, the scent fades. The closing is gentle, not a firm shut, just a narrowing of the opening. The light inside becomes a thinner slice. The sounds soften. Then the lane belongs to itself again, and you continue on, carrying the faint memory of warmth in your breath. You continue, and the town grows quieter with every step. Even the dogs seem to have found their places to rest. A cat slips along a wall and disappears into shadow without sound. The cat's movement is a single smooth line, a piece of living darkness slipping through another darkness. Its paws make no scrape on stone. It turns a corner and is simply gone, as if it never existed. The lane remains empty, the walls silent. From somewhere higher up, perhaps from a house with a small upper room, you hear a few notes of a stringed instrument, soft and brief. Not a performance, just someone touching sound the way one might touch a cup of water before drinking. Then the notes end, and the night returns to its simpler music. The notes hang for a moment after they stop, like ripples after a pebble. They are gentle enough that they do not awaken anything inside you. They only add a thin thread to the night, then let it go. When silence returns, it feels even deeper, as if the sound has shown you how quiet the town truly is. You reach a corner where the lane turns sharply, and a lamp hangs above, lighting the worn edge of the stone. The light reveals small details, a chip in the wall, a line of mortar, a scratch where a cart once brushed too close. The lamp's glow gathers in the corner like pooled honey. It shows the way the wall has been repaired, the way plaster has been smoothed with a wet hand, the way stone beneath has resisted. The scratch from the cart is shallow but long, a quiet story of a day when the lane was crowded enough for wheels. You let your hand slide along the wall for a moment. The plaster is cool, and a little dust comes away on your skin. The dust is fine, almost silky, and it leaves a pale trace on your fingertips. The wall feels solid and indifferent, holding the night's coolness. Your touch is brief, not possessive, just a small acknowledgement that you are here, moving through stone that has held countless nights. Later, you find steps, broad, shallow stone steps leading to a small terrace that overlooks part of the harbor. You climb slowly, feeling the change in air, the breeze stronger up here. The steps are worn down in the center where most feet have climbed. Your sandals catch the shallow edges, and your body shifts forward in a steady, unhurried rhythm. As you rise, you feel the air move more freely. It reaches your face from a wider angle, carrying the scent of open water again. From the terrace, the harbor looks like a bowl of darkness with scattered points of amber light along its rim. The boats are darker shapes, their masts thin lines against the sky. The moon's path across the water is faint tonight, but it is there, silver broken by ripples. From above, the reflections look slower. The lamp's light becomes small islands of warmth floating in a larger sea of black. The boats seem calmer from this distance, their rocking reduced to a subtle shift. The masts are still, and the sky behind them is sprinkled with stars like pale grains of salt. You stand still and let the view settle into you. The town's lamps do not make the night smaller. They only mark where people have chosen to remain awake. You can almost sense the places those lamps belong to, a doorway where someone has not yet slept, a corner where a guard might pass, a boat that needs watching, a shrine where a flame is kept out of habit. Each light is a small decision made against darkness, not a battle, just a choice. Far out, beyond the harbor mouth, the sea is an even darker field, and it carries its own calm authority, indifferent to small lights. That darkness is not threatening. It is simply vast. The sea holds its own depth without needing to show it. It makes the harbor's curve feel like a gentle shelter, a small indentation in a much larger world. As the night goes on, you make your way back down, returning to the quay as if returning to a familiar room. The stones here have a different feel underfoot now, cooler, slightly damp, with a thin grit of sand that has drifted in. Your steps become softer again, adjusted to the lower air and the closer water. The grit catches under your sandal, then releases. The dampness is not wet enough to slick the stone, only enough to change the texture, making it feel more alive, more connected to the sea. You pass a mooring post where the rope is drawn tight, and you watch the rope fibers flex and relax with the boat's movement. It is a slow conversation between wood and water, and the rope is the language. The rope tightens slightly as the boat leans away, then eases as the boat comes back. The fibers shift against themselves, making that soft creak that is almost a sigh. It is not a dramatic pull, only enough to remind you that nothing here is perfectly still. A small splash marks the moment a wave meets the stone edge. Then another. The sound is soft enough that you could forget it if you tried, but it refuses to leave completely, steady and faithful. The splashes arrive with tiny differences. One is sharper against a corner, another is softer against a flatter face. Sometimes the water pulls away with a faint sucking sound, then returns. The harbor keeps count of nothing, and yet it keeps time. Nothing in the harbor needs to be remembered for it to continue. That thought settles like a weight, but a gentle one. It makes the night feel less demanding. The harbor does not ask anything from you. It simply goes on. You walk past a cluster of jars stacked near a wall, storage for oil, perhaps, or wine, or grain. The shapes are familiar in the lamplight, rounded shoulders, narrow necks, clay warmed by day and cooled by night. The jars are arranged with a practical care, their heavier bodies placed closer to the ground, their rims turned slightly inward as if to protect their mouths from stray grit. In the lamp's glow, their surfaces show faint rings where hands have gripped them, darker smudges where oil has touched clay. Some jars carry small scratches, shallow lines that catch the light only when you pass at just the right angle. One jar has a small chip near its rim, and you imagine someone noticing it earlier, deciding it can still be used, setting it here with the others. In a town like this, nothing is wasted without reason. The chip feels like a quiet compromise, a small imperfection accepted rather than corrected. You can almost picture the moment, a jar lifted, a rim tapped against stone, a brief pause, and then the decision to keep it. The jar's purpose remains the same, and the night does not judge it. A lamp nearby makes the jars cast plump shadows on the wall. The shadows look like a second set of jars made of darkness. Those dark shapes have softer edges than the real jars. They swell and shrink slightly as the flame leans, as if the shadows are breathing. When the breeze touches the lamp, the shadows sway, and then they settle back into place. The wall behind them looks uneven, patched, painted, repainted, and the shadows slide over those textures without changing them. You move on, and the shadows shift with you, then settle again when you pass. The movement is small, almost affectionate, as if the light and shadow are acknowledging your presence without needing to hold it. Once you are gone, the jars return to being only jars, and the wall returns to being only wall. Later, the air changes. The breeze carries a faint scent of herbs crushed underfoot, perhaps thyme growing in a crack between stones, or laurel leaves tucked somewhere near a doorway. The scent is small but bright against the heavier smells of salt and oil. It arrives suddenly, a thin green note in the air, then it fades, then it returns with the next shift of wind. You find yourself breathing in a little deeper without meaning to, as if your body recognizes the scent as something clean and calming. The herb smell makes the night feel more textured, as if the town has hidden small offerings in the stone. You find the herb by sight, a low plant hugging the stone, resilient and quiet. You brush it gently with your hand, and the scent rises, then quickly fades back into the night air. The plant is small enough that you could step over it without noticing, and yet it holds its place. Its leaves are narrow and slightly rough, and when your fingers pass over them, a few tiny fragments break free. The scent grows stronger for a moment, as if the plant has opened its mouth to breathe, and then it closes again, returning to quiet. Above, the stars remain steady. Their light is too distant to warm anything, but it gives shape to the darkness. The sky feels higher here, away from the lane walls. The stars do not flicker with drama, they simply exist. They make the sea's darkness feel less empty, as if the night has depth in every direction. Down at the waterline, the harbor keeps its own simple, close light, lamp flames, reflections, and the faint glimmer on wet stone. You notice the wet stone glinting where waves have recently touched. It catches lamplight like a thin skin of glass, then dulls as it dries. In that small cycle, wet, glint, dull, you feel the night's slow pulse. After a while, you come to a place where a larger boat is moored, perhaps a merchant vessel that has hugged the coast from island to island. Its hull is higher, its ropes thicker, its presence heavier in the water. Standing near it, you feel the boat's mass as something real, not just seen but sensed. The hull rises above you like a low wall of wood, and the smell is stronger here, wet timber, old pitch, salt embedded deep in grain. The ropes are thicker, and their fibers are coarser, as if made to bear not just a boat, but a small portion of the sea's force. You stand near it and listen. The creak here is deeper, a slow groan of wood settling. A few objects rest on the deck: coiled rope, a folded sailcloth, a clay lamp set in a protected corner. The sailcloth is a pale shape in the dimness, folded into a heavy bundle. It looks stiff with salt and use, and you imagine it snapping in wind during the day, then being lowered with care. The clay lamp on deck burns low, as if the crew has asked it to last through the darkest part of night, keeping enough light for a careful step. You imagine the day that brought it here, an approach at midday, oars dipping, a call from shore, hands catching lines. Now, all of that has been folded away into stillness. Only the boat remains, breathing gently with the sea. You don't imagine the day in detail for long. The day is already gone, and the night has its own shape. The boat's breath is in its movement, leaning slightly, returning, leaning again. The ropes answer, the water answers, and the whole harbor holds the conversation without trying to translate it into words. Some ports are vast, crowded, and loud, places where ships come and go without pause. Far away on the mainland, there are harbors like that, famous and busy. Here, the harbor is smaller, and the night feels like it fits the scale of the town. The smallness is not limitation. It is a kind of mercy. The water's sound is enough. The lamps are enough. The stones and the boats form a world that can be held in a single breath. You move on, and the quay curves again, leading you to a quieter corner where the stone wall is lower and the water is darker. There is less lamplight here, and the moon seems brighter by comparison. In this quieter corner, the water looks deeper, not because it is necessarily deeper, but because there is less to interrupt its darkness. The moonlight lies on it like a pale cloth, thin and wavering. The stone wall, lower here, makes you feel closer to the surface, as if you could reach out and touch the night itself. You stop and look into the water. In the near dark, the surface reflects only hints, an edge of light, a ripple, the suggestion of depth. You can't see the bottom, and you don't try to. The not seeing becomes part of the calm. Your eyes rest on the surface and do not demand more. A faint shimmer appears where a small wave catches moonlight, then vanishes. The harbor does not reveal everything, and there is no need for it to. A soft gust passes, lifting the hem of your cloak and pressing cool air against your skin. The breeze smells of open sea, clean and sharp. The cloth moves like a slow wave against your legs, then settles again. The breeze cools the warmth that had gathered near your body, and for a moment you feel more awake, then the sensation softens into comfort. The sea smell here is less mixed with smoke and oil, it is clearer, like the breath of a wider world beyond the harbor mouth. The boats respond with a slight chorus of rope sounds, like a group of sleepers shifting in their rest. The chorus is brief and then it quiets again. One rope creaks longer than the others, then stops. The boats settle into their gentlest rocking, and the corner returns to silence, held by water. Later, you find yourself walking back toward the market again, not because you need anything, but because the open space offers a different kind of quiet. In the lanes, the walls are close, and the lamps make small caves of light. In the market, the sky opens above you, and starlight feels more present. Your path feels familiar now, not memorized in sharp detail but known in the body. The soles of your sandals recognize the way the stone changes at certain corners. The air changes before you see the market, growing a little freer. The noise of water becomes slightly more distant, replaced by a stillness that feels broader. You stand near the center of the empty paving stones and look up. The constellations are not named in your thoughts tonight. They are simply patterns, scattered and calm. Looking up, you feel the market's emptiness as a kind of space inside you too. The stars do not demand interpretation. They are only points of light, placed too far away to care whether you understand them. The roofs around the market frame the sky like a shallow bowl, and in that bowl the night looks smooth and deep. A faint bell sound drifts from the sanctuary area, one clear note that seems to mark time without insisting on it. The sound touches the stones, then fades. The bell note is not loud, but it is distinct, a clean thread pulled through the night. It reaches you, rests for a moment, and then dissolves. It does not change anything. It simply exists, and then it doesn't. You listen until the last trace of the bell dissolves into the water's steady lap. And after the bell is gone, the water seems more present again, as if it has been there all along, waiting politely behind other sounds. As the hours pass, the town settles deeper. The lamps you saw earlier grow fewer. One by one, circles of amber wink out behind shutters and doors, leaving the lanes darker. The change is slow enough that you don't always notice the exact moment a lamp disappears. You only realize, after a few minutes, that a certain corner is now darker, a certain doorway no longer has that warm halo. The town seems to exhale each time a lamp goes out, letting the darkness reclaim a little more space. On the quay, a few lights remain, placed where they need to be, near a corner, near a doorway, near an altar, near a boat that must be watched. The remaining flames feel more precious now, not brighter, but more noticeable against the thickening dark. Each remaining light becomes a quiet landmark. A small flame near a stair. A low lamp by a mooring post. A lantern on a stern, its glow protected from wind. These lights do not compete with the night, they simply give it edges, gentle points of warmth where the eye can rest. You walk through a patch of moonlight and feel the coolness on your hands and face. In that light, the stone looks almost white. And every crack becomes a thin line. The moonlight feels like water on skin, cool and clean. The cracks in stone become visible stories, where a block meets another block, where a corner has chipped, where weather has opened a small seam. Your hands, lifted briefly into the light, look pale, and then you lower them again and they return to darkness. You step back into lamplight and feel warmth return to your eyes, as if the flame is a small hearth for sight itself. The warmth is not heat, not exactly, but softness, edges blur slightly, shadows deepen into brown rather than blue, and your gaze relaxes. The lamp makes the world kinder to look at. Later, you pass a doorway where someone has left a small lamp burning near the threshold, just enough that a sliver of light spills onto the lane. The flame is low, careful, as if it has been asked to last. The light on the ground is thin and steady, and it touches the dust in the lane like a gentle finger. The lamp inside must be placed close to the door, perhaps on a small shelf or a low table, where it can warm the threshold without wasting oil. You imagine the room inside, bedding rolled out, a blanket pulled up, a jug of water placed nearby, a comb set on a shelf. The small acts that make the night workable. You imagine those acts without entering them. The room remains private, and your mind stays in the lane, with the thin light and the quiet. The idea of a comb, a jug, a blanket, these are ordinary anchors, simple enough that they do not pull you into complicated thought. The lamp smoke is almost imperceptible, but you smell it when you pass, burnt oil, faintly bitter. It reminds you that even gentle light has weight and cost. The smell lingers for only a moment, then it is replaced by the cooler scent of plaster and night air. Still, the brief bitterness has a grounding effect, like touching the edge of something real. You keep walking, and your own breath becomes more noticeable, steady and quiet, matching the harbor's slow rhythm. Your breath is not loud, but in the deeper quiet you can hear it in your chest, and you can feel it in your throat. It comes and goes, and each return feels predictable, familiar. Outside, the water keeps its steady lap, and the two rhythms begin to feel like they belong together. After a while, you return to the water's edge and choose a place to sit, on a low stone block near a mooring point, where you can watch both the boats and the lights along the quay. The stone is cool beneath you now, the day's warmth almost entirely gone. The coolness comes through cloth and skin, not unpleasant, just definite. You settle your weight and feel the stone's firmness. The block has a slightly rounded edge where countless people have sat, tied rope, rested a basket, paused for a moment. Even sitting feels like joining a quiet tradition. You sit without moving much. In the stillness, you hear details you missed while walking, the tiny tap of a wavelet against a stone corner, the faint swish of water brushing a boat's side, the soft, periodic strain of rope. The tiny tap is like a fingertip on stone. The swish is like cloth dragged gently through a basin. The rope strain is a slow complaint that comes and goes. None of these sounds form a message. They form a texture, a fabric of night laid over the harbor. Across the harbor, a lamp's reflection stretches and shortens as the water shifts, like a slow breath drawn and released. You watch it until your eyes stop trying to measure it and simply accept it as movement. At first, the mind wants to count, to predict, to understand why the reflection narrows at one moment and widens at another. Then that desire fades. The reflection becomes what it is, a trembling strip of light on dark water, and your attention becomes softer, less pointed, as if the water has trained it. The sea keeps its rhythm without effort, and the town rests inside that rhythm. The thought doesn't arrive like an instruction. It arrives like a fact, quiet and steady. The sea doesn't hurry, and the town doesn't resist. Everything is held in the same slow movement. Later, you stand again, not because you are restless, but because the night offers you another loop of the quay. Another quiet circuit. You walk past nets and jars and closed stalls, past doorways that are now dark, past a lamp that still burns in a sheltered corner. Standing feels like waking a small part of the body without waking the mind. Your legs straighten, your feet find the stone, and you move again. The quay seems unchanged, yet subtly different, darker in places where lamps have gone out, cooler in the air, quieter in the lanes. You pass the sanctuary path again and glance up. The precinct is dimmer now, the lamp near the altar still present but smaller, as if it is conserving itself. From below, the lamp looks like a small ember set against stone. It does not call to you. It simply continues. The sanctuary feels higher and more distant now, folded further into darkness. You acknowledge it the way you might acknowledge a star, present, steady, not requiring approach. You do not go up this time. You simply acknowledge the higher darkness and continue along the water. Your steps follow the quay's curve as naturally as the water follows the harbor wall. The stones guide you without needing light to explain them. Your footsteps are slower now, and the space between them feels wider, filled with water sound. In that space, you can hear the harbor breathing. You can feel the air moving around your ankles. You can sense the slow sway of boats even when you are not looking directly at them. The night fills the gaps and makes them comfortable. As the night deepens further, the air cools enough that you draw your cloak a little closer. Wool shifts against your shoulder with a soft rasp, and the cloth holds the warmth you've kept. The wool has its own scent, faintly animal, faintly smoky from earlier fires. It scratches just slightly, enough to remind you it's there, enough to feel real. You tuck it closer and feel the warmth gather around your chest, a small pocket of comfort. You pause at a section of quay where the stone is polished by many hands and many loads. You place your palm on it and feel the coolness, and beneath it, a density that seems unchanged by weather. The stone's polished surface is almost smooth, but not slick. It has the slight unevenness of something shaped by countless small pressures. Your palm senses the stone's stored cold, and beneath that, a steadiness. The quay feels like something that does not need to think to be strong. The harbor smell is simpler now. Less food, less smoke, more salt, more clean night air. The town's daily scents have faded, and the sea's scent has come forward. The sea scent is sharper, clearer. It feels like breathing in distance. Even within the harbor's shelter, the open sea makes itself known through smell and coolness. The absence of other scents makes the night feel cleaner, as if the town has been washed by darkness. A boat's rope creaks once, long and slow, and then falls silent again, as if the harbor has turned over in its sleep. The creak is almost musical, a single drawn-out note. It begins, peaks, and then fades. The silence afterward feels deeper, as if the rope's sound has marked a gentle boundary and then stepped back. Later, you find yourself back in the narrow lanes, moving more by memory than by light. The lamps here are fewer now, and the moon helps where it can, slipping into the alley mouths and painting pale shapes on the ground. The lanes are darker, but not confusing. Your body remembers the width of a corner, the slight rise of a step, the way the wall curves near a doorway. Moonlight appears in patches, as if poured from above, then disappears again when the lane bends. You pass a wall where plaster has fallen away, revealing rough stone beneath. The stone looks older than the town's current shape, as if it remembers other hands, other years, other nights. The exposed stone has a different color, darker and more varied, with small flecks that catch moonlight. The missing plaster edge is jagged, and you can see layers where repairs have been made. The wall feels like a record of time, kept without words. A small plant grows at the base of the wall, stubborn and quiet. You step around it without thinking, as if everyone has always stepped around it. The plant's leaves are small, and it leans slightly toward the faintest light. Its presence makes the lane feel lived in, as if even the stones have allowed life to take root where it can. Somewhere nearby, water is poured again, perhaps someone waking briefly in the night, perhaps someone tending a lamp, perhaps simply the house continuing its small tasks. The sound is gentle, a short pour, then a pause. It does not echo much. It feels like a private moment that brushes the lane and then withdraws. After it stops, the lane returns to the soft scrape of your steps. After a while, you return to a courtyard that is open to the sky. A lamp burns low on a ledge, and the courtyard stones are divided into warm and cool, amber near the flame, silver near the moonlight. The courtyard air is calmer than the lanes. Here, the breeze can enter and leave without being forced around corners. The sky above is a quiet opening, and the stars are visible again. The lamp on the ledge burns low but steady, making a warm patch on the ground where the stone looks almost gentle. You sit on a low step just inside the courtyard, close enough to feel the lamp's warmth on your hands. The flame is steady now, less bothered by wind, and its light is soft, rounding the edges of everything it touches. The step is smooth under you, worn by countless sittings. You rest your hands in the warm patch of light and notice the difference between lamp-warmed skin and night-cooled skin. Your shoulders relax, and your breathing slows without being asked. You notice a small household shrine in a corner, simple, almost plain. A tiny cup sits there, and a few dried leaves, and the lamp's glow reaches it gently, without drama. The shrine is modest enough that it could be missed in the dark. But the lamp's glow gives it a quiet presence. The tiny cup casts a small shadow. The dried leaves look pale and delicate, their edges curled. There is no fresh smoke, no strong incense, only the suggestion that someone has offered something small and sincere. In places like this, the sacred and the ordinary share the same stones, and the night does not separate them. The thought feels like the courtyard itself, open to sky, enclosed by walls, held together by simple things, stone, flame, air. Later, you leave the courtyard and take the slow path toward where you will rest. You choose a room that looks out toward the harbor, or a roof space where the air moves freely, depending on what the night offers. The choice feels natural rather than deliberate. You follow what seems easiest, a doorway that is familiar, a stair that doesn't demand attention, a space that already feels quiet. The town's layout guides you like a hand at the elbow, not forcing, only steering gently. The bedding is simple, a pallet, a folded blanket, a cushion that smells faintly of wool and sun. You set your cloak aside and feel the cooler air on your arms. The pallet is laid on a level place, close to a wall that holds some of the day's heat, though very little now. The blanket is folded neatly, and when you touch it, it gives a soft resistance, thick enough to be comforting. The cushion's scent is subtle, wool warmed by sun long ago, then cooled and stored, then warmed again by a body. A small oil lamp is placed where it cannot be knocked over. Its flame is low and calm, enough to soften the darkness without making it bright. The lamp's light paints the nearest wall and leaves the far corners in shadow, as if the room is half awake and half asleep. The flame's glow is a small island. It shows the wall's texture, plaster smoothed in some places, cracked in others. It makes a soft gradient across the room, from warm near the lamp to cool near the corners. The shadows are not harsh, they are thick, velvety, gathering quietly where the light doesn't reach. From outside, the water's sound reaches you, muted now, filtered by distance and stone, but still unmistakable. The sound is like hearing the harbor through cloth. It has less sharpness, more softness. The steady lap becomes a distant hush. The rope creaks become faint suggestions rather than clear notes. Still, the rhythm remains, as if the sea is speaking quietly so it won't disturb anyone. As the minutes pass, you lie down and let your body settle into the shape of the pallet. The blanket's weight is light but definite, a quiet pressure that tells your limbs where to stop moving. The pallet supports you evenly, firm but not uncomfortable. The blanket warms slowly, first where it touches your chest, then where it covers your legs. Your shoulders sink into the cushion, and the cushion yields without collapsing, holding the shape of your head. You listen. The harbor sounds are still there, but farther away now, water lapping, a rope complaining once. A faint clink that could be chain or pottery, then silence again. The sounds arrive in slow intervals. Sometimes there is only water for a long time, and then a rope gives one gentle groan. The clink is rare, like a small bell heard from far away. Each sound is brief, and after it passes, the room returns to its deeper quiet. The lamp's flame makes a small sound of its own, almost too soft to notice, a tiny living crackle. The oil scent is warmer in the room, mixing with the clean smell of plaster and cloth. The scent is faint, not heavy enough to feel smoky. It is the smell of a steady, controlled flame. It makes the room feel inhabited even without voices. The plaster smell is cool and dry, and the cloth smell is soft, like stored warmth. The night feels steady, built from repeating things, wave sounds, flame tremble, breath. Those repeating things begin to blend. The waves outside become part of your breath. The flame's tremble becomes part of your sense of time. The room becomes a simple container for those rhythms. Later, the lamp is lower, its flame smaller, and the room is darker. Moonlight slips in through an opening and lays a pale shape across the floor, moving slowly as the night turns. The moonlight is not bright enough to show everything, only enough to sketch. It touches the floor in a soft patch, turning the stone pale. The patch moves so slowly it feels almost still, like a shadow drifting, patient and indifferent. Your body becomes heavier in the simple way it does when work is done and nothing else is asked. The muscles along your back loosen. The skin on your hands cools. Your jaw unclenches without instruction, as if it has remembered it can. The heaviness is comfortable, like sinking into sand. Your hands rest where they are placed. Your legs do not search for a better position. The small tensions that were holding themselves up, shoulders, brow, jaw, begin to release, one by one, without needing you to notice. Outside, the sea keeps moving, not louder, not quieter, simply continuing. The boats will rock whether you listen or not. The ropes will creak whether anyone hears them. That continuing feels like a promise made without words. The sea does not stop because you have stopped. It does not demand your attention. It simply keeps its pace, steady enough to hold the harbor together. The night does not require your attention to hold itself together. The thought arrives as a quiet settling. It makes the darkness feel less like absence and more like presence, a gentle weight in the room. As time softens further, your thoughts become less pointed. They arrive like small ripples and fade before they reach any shore. The ripples are not troubling, they are brief and shallow. An image of a lamp's reflection. The feel of cool stone under your palm. The sound of a rope creak. Each thought comes, touches the surface of your mind, then disappears, leaving the surface smooth again. You notice the textures closest to you, the blankets weave against your fingertips, the faint grit of salt on your skin, the coolness of air at your nostrils. These things are simple enough to stay with without effort. The weave feels slightly raised, tiny ridges under your fingers. The grit of salt is barely there, but it reminds you of the quay, of the harbor's air. The coolness at your nostrils is steady and gentle, arriving with each breath and leaving again. The lamp is now only a small ember of light, barely shaping the room. Shadows blend into one another. The corners disappear. The ember's glow no longer reaches far. It creates a small warmth near itself, and beyond that the room is mostly night. The shapes of objects lose their edges. The wall becomes a single soft plane. The ceiling becomes an idea rather than a surface. Outside, water meets stone again and again, patient as breath. The sound is quieter now in your awareness, not because it has changed, but because it has become part of the room's background, like a steady hand on a shoulder. Later, even the idea of later feels less sharp. The room is mostly dark now, with only a hint of warm glow and a hint of moonlight. Time becomes less a sequence and more a slow current. Moments drift by without needing names. The warm hint from the lamp is barely a color now, and the moonlight patch is thinner, perhaps shifted by clouds, perhaps simply moved beyond the opening. You hear a distant footstep in the lane, one person, moving slowly, then gone. No voices follow. The town returns to stillness as if it had never been disturbed. The footstep is soft, careful. It might be someone returning from tending a lamp, or someone checking a door latch, or simply someone moving from one sleeping place to another. It lasts only a few steps, then fades. The lane becomes silent again, and the room remains unchanged. The sea sound remains, constant enough that it seems to hold time in place. Each small splash is familiar, and yet each is new. The familiar part is the rhythm. The new part is the exact shape of each wave. The sound repeats without copying itself. It is the same kind of steadiness as breathing, each breath familiar, each breath distinct. Your body lies in the same position, and the stillness is not forced. It is simply what happens when nothing needs doing. The stillness feels natural, like the body has remembered an old skill. The palate holds you. The blanket holds warmth. The air moves quietly. Nothing presses you to change. As the night continues, the lamp's scent fades. The air becomes cleaner, cooler, more like open space. The faint oil smell thins until it is barely present. What remains is the scent of plaster and night air, and the distant salt that comes from the harbor. The room feels less enclosed by smell, more open, as if the night has widened inside it. You feel the blanket's edge resting against your shoulder. You feel the weight of your own arm against your side. These are quiet facts, not thoughts, just the simple language of being in one place. The blanket edge is slightly thicker, folded over. Your shoulder feels the pressure of fabric and the cooler air beyond it. Your arm is warm where it touches your body, cooler where it is exposed. These sensations do not ask for interpretation. They simply exist. Outside, a faint breeze shifts, and with it the harbor's chorus changes slightly. Rope sounds move from one boat to another, the water's tone changes as it meets a different stone angle. The shift is subtle, but your ear catches it. The water sounds slightly different, perhaps a little deeper, perhaps a little softer. One rope creaks where another had been silent. The harbor rearranges its small music without waking anyone. Everything adjusts without effort, without waking anyone fully. The adjustment feels like the night itself breathing, changing posture, settling again. Later, the room becomes almost entirely the color of night. The moonlight is thinner now, or perhaps the clouds have moved. The lamp is nearly done, leaving only the softest suggestion of warmth. The remaining warmth is not so much seen as sensed, a tiny presence near where the lamp sits. The flame might be only a low glow at the wick, barely alive. The room's darkness feels thicker, like cloth laid over everything. You can still hear the harbor, but now it is less a set of sounds and more a single, continuous presence. The sea is there. The stone is there. The town is there, folded inward. The presence is like a slow, steady hand. It doesn't move quickly. It doesn't demand. It simply holds. The sea is not separate from the room anymore, it is part of the night that surrounds you. Your breathing matches the slow pace around you, not because you decide it should, but because the night is steady and your body is steady inside it. Breath in, breath out. A quiet rise, a quiet fall. The body's rhythm finds the harbor's rhythm the way a small boat finds the harbor's shelter. Nothing insists. Nothing hurries. Those two facts feel like the deepest texture of the night. They smooth the edges of thought. They soften the sense of time. They let the body remain where it is. As the last traces of light grow faint, the details of the room blur into comfort. The edges of things soften. The floor and the wall and the ceiling become less important than the feeling of being held by stillness. The room becomes mostly sensation rather than shape. The pallet's firmness beneath you. The blanket's warmth. The cool air moving lightly across your face. The distant water sound. These things remain when the mind stops naming objects. Outside, water keeps brushing stone over and over, with the same quiet patience. Somewhere a boat shifts, a rope creaks once, then rests again. The rope creak is a single slow note, and then it is gone. The boat's shift is felt more than heard, a subtle change in the harbor's pattern. Water continues without pause, touching stone, withdrawing, touching again. The night carries on, lamp by lamp, wave by wave, even as the town grows darker. The carrying on is gentle, not dramatic. Lamps dim. Waves repeat. The town's breath slows. The harbor remains. And the harbor, with its stone and its lamps and its gentle boats, keeps its rhythm as if it has always been there, and will be there, long after any single waking moment has passed.